Good afternoon, I'm Rudy Juarez Pinedo, and this is Chapman News, the podcast for Friday, April 16th, 2020. Let's get started with today's major headlines. The number of coronavirus cases crosses 2.1 million worldwide, with the death toll reaching over 147,000. In the U.S., there are over 670,000 confirmed cases and close to 35,000 have died. Despite the country having the highest number of cases and death toll in the world, President Trump says that we have passed the peak of new cases. This announcement coming soon after New York City reported a rise in COVID-19 fatalities up to 10,400. But have we turned a new corner? The White House released new CDC recommendations just last night, with 3 levels of returning to the new normal. But the president was careful to say these were recommendations, and it was up to the state's governors to act. This contradicts statements the president made earlier this week, claiming he had total authority to act on behalf of the states and not the governors. The president describes the choices the states have to make as, quote, a beautiful puzzle. Some states will not change their prevention measures, but others with limited cases will open up more. Kylie Miller has the details.
Thanks, Rudy. The president, backed by his top health officials, laid out 3 phases. The first phase applies to states with major coronavirus outbreaks, like New York and New Jersey, and encourages these states to continue social distancing while allowing some businesses to reopen with strict social distancing measures. The second phase opens up the states a bit more, allowing non-essential travel to resume and allowing non-essential businesses to reopen with moderate social distancing measures. The third phase is for states with few coronavirus cases, like parts of the Great Plains, and allows for life to return to normal. However, Dr. Anthony Fauci made it very clear that this was not like flipping a switch, that this transition would be slow and methodical, with a lot of steps states would have to clear, like 2 weeks without new cases, based on numbers and testing. In other words, before a state can even institute one of these phases, it has to pass a number of health requirements. Jim Acosta of CNN put it this way: Trump wants to have a phase 3 with everything back to normal, but we're still in a phase 1 world. Many questions still remain about how the plan will work in the real world. Reporting from the San Francisco Bay Area for Chapman News, I'm Kylie Miller.
Thanks, Kylie. Now, medical experts are critiquing a rush to reopen the country without widespread testing. Also preventing the country from reopening, the absence of a vaccine for the virus. Harvard coming out this week with startling predictions if a vaccine isn't developed. With more on this and your medical report this week, we have our Lindsay Arabian. Lindsay?
Thanks, Rudy. On Tuesday, Harvard researchers published a report indicating that social distancing could last until 2022 if a working vaccine is not widely available. Harvard basing their predictions on its prior knowledge of other coronaviruses and SARS. This contradicts research released by the White House, which suggests that the pandemic could end by this summer. Harvard believes that if the social distancing protocols are lifted prematurely, that COVID-19 can come back even deadlier. California, until recently, was considered one of the most high-risk states for COVID-19. However, it has been very successful in limiting the spread of the virus so far. The most populous state in the nation has only the 5th most confirmed cases at over 27,000, which is about 1/8 the amount that New York has. Many believe that this was due to the early shelter-in-place order. One of the states under fire for its handling of the virus is Georgia. Governor Brian Kemp only 2 weeks ago announced that the state would be enacting a shelter-in-place policy. This has drawn harsh criticism both nationally and locally. I was able to speak to Cameron Brooks, a high-risk Georgia resident who is disappointed in his state's reaction to the virus.
Thank you so much for doing this interview with us. I'm going to dive right into the questions, so let's begin. So how do you feel about Georgia's response to this pandemic?
I feel like it's been really lackluster with the government's response, or really lack of response. It's left a lot of smaller cities and counties to kind of fend for themselves. I'm lucky to be in one of the ones that has done a really good job at enforcing this stuff kind of early. There's no hotspot where I live around Savannah, but there are other places that are definitely not prepared and don't have the resources they need to fight this coronavirus.
So, do you think this late reaction was out of ignorance, or was it an attempt to keep daily life normal in Georgia?
I think it's a bit of both, actually. Ignorance because of admitting publicly that he only issued the stay in place order because the day before he found out that you could pass the coronavirus asymptomatically. Like, our governor should definitely have a better way to gain information. Because if your citizens are more informed than you are about it, you should not be in office.
What are you doing as a person of high risk to keep yourself safe, and is the state helping in any way?
I'm just staying home as much as humanly possible. I don't really need the state to help with that particular thing, though. It does suck that I do have to stay isolated, but, if that's what it takes to keep myself and others safe, then I'll gladly do it.
What would you say to the people who are still not taking this virus seriously?
Please stay home. Please stay home. You are endangering your life and the lives of others. Just because you're young does not mean this virus can't get you. You've seen the headlines of people dying who are younger than 21 and people in critical condition who are, around my age range, which is 21 to 25. So please stay home. It's boring, I know, but we got to do it.
Okay, thank you so much. Stay safe out there and have a good one.
Thank you, you too.
This is Lindsay Arabian reporting from Whittier, California. Up next in our Ask the Expert segment, we spoke to Dr. Lam. This week, she discusses testing and its role in reopening the country. Our reporter, Nina Hatton, has the interview. Nina?
Thank you for being with us today, Dr. Lam. Let's jump straight into our questions. Reopening the economy has been a topic on everyone's mind. What steps do we need to take to get there?
Before we can safely and confidently reopen our country, we need to first address the current situation about the lack of testing and medical supplies and perform contact tracing. And the purpose of contact tracing is to determine who have been exposed to the infected person so that we can test that individual who have been exposed and have that person stay home or be quarantined to minimize or prevent further community infection.
So something that you mentioned there was testing. We've heard from the Trump administration that testing isn't an issue. However, some medical experts disagree. What do you think about this?
Testing is still a very big issue in our country, and it is not available to all frontline healthcare workers. And let alone normal people like us, if we feel like we may have some symptoms, we cannot just simply go up to a clinic to get tested. So testing is the major obstacle or major limiting step right now to reopening our economy safely. There are two main types of testing. We have the diagnostic test to determine whether a person is truly infected or not, but we also have the antibody test, which determines whether that person was exposed to the virus and have developed immunity or antibodies to the virus. So we need to make sure that we have both. We have the capacity for both forms of tests available. The federal government is there supposed to help the states to provide that support, as well as to make sure that we are successful in offering tests as well as analyzing test results.
Yes, there's also been a lot of talk about startup companies creating testing. Are those safe?
For right now, I know that people are desperate to return back to work and to get their life back to some kind of normalcy. My advice would be to stay with a standardized test that have been validated by reputable laboratory companies. So I would refrain from actually going with any homemade or any made-up test kit that hasn't been validated or vetted through some form of standardized system offered by the state or the federal government.
Thank you, Dr. Lam. That actually concludes our questions for today. I want to thank you so much for being on the Chapman News podcast, and we'll talk to you next week.
Great. Thank you for having me.
For Chapman News, this is Nina Hatton.
Thank you, Nina. Now, some major changes coming to standardized testing. An increasing number of schools are waiving these requirements for 2021 applicants. The College Board announcing that the SAT and ACT test will be moved online if schools continue to stay closed in the fall. But Chapman has already made these tests optional. We have Gianna Gravelisi with the latest updates from Chapman's campus.
Thanks, Rudy. One of the biggest questions for students has been answered, and that is the fact that summer classes will start remotely without a tuition reduction. No plan is set for fall, but students can give their feedback regarding remote instruction in a survey provided by Dean Jerry Price. Zoom may not be as fun as our classrooms, but now students can use Chapman-themed virtual backgrounds to make them feel right at home. While I was taking a break from Zoom this week, I went out for a walk when a group of young boys in my neighborhood pointed at me and screamed, "Oh no, Chinese people are coming, run." While I am not Chinese, this is unfortunately happening to people of Asian descent around the world. Chapman's Cross-Cultural Center is sharing weekly resources on the Life at CU Instagram to educate students about anti-Asian racism during COVID-19. Students can also keep busy during this time by signing up for an International Panther Pal, where you can connect with international students via mail. We connected with Nolan England about how he's dealing with COVID-19 overseas.
I do not live in Mexico. My family does, though. I've lived in the Bay Area my whole life until now. I felt like it was time to be home during events such as they are, and home is now Cabo. I left LA right as the lockdown happened. And so I got here and everything was still open, just pretty much life as usual here in Cabo. And then slowly they started implementing similar things that they've been doing in LA. They just implemented an interesting rule. You aren't allowed to have multiple people in a car driving. For me personally, I've really enjoyed it. I wanted to have time to work on my own projects. I wanted to have time to hang out with my family more. I'm incredibly lucky being able to have my quarantine experience with my family in such an awesome place.
Students closer to home have been helping their community by using Chapman's 3D printers. Junior science major Alexandros Strivas was inspired to take action as his mother works on the front lines in an LA County hospital. He, along with other students and professors, have printed and donated over 1,000 face shields to hospitals all over Southern California and beyond. Seniors will have to keep waiting for a new graduation date, but have a 5-week extension to order their caps and gowns. Information about commencement is being updated on Chapman's website. We'll continue to keep you updated, Panthers. For Chapman News reporting from Boston, this is Gianna Gravelisi. And now we have Kim Becker with a special look on how this pandemic is impacting one of Chapman's favorite spots, the Orange Circle. Kim?
The Orange Circle is well known for unique local restaurants and shops and is usually buzzing with customers all day long. Earth Cafe, one of the newer restaurants in the circle, is co-founded by Shalom Berkman and his wife Sheila, and Shalom said that their location here in Orange is their pride and joy.
We were so fortunate to find a building for sale in the circle. It's amazing to be a part of this vibrant community.
But on March 19th, the statewide lockdown affected local restaurants and shops just like Earth Cafe, not only in Orange, but all around the state.
Our sales have dropped more than 80%. It's somewhere between 80 and 90%. So it's pretty shocking and devastating. And we're grateful for relief that's coming.
Shalom said that the Friday before the lockdown was put in place, his wife Sheila had decided they should convert to takeout only immediately for the sake of their staff's health and safety.
I was so angry at her for saying that. I was like, you can't be doom and gloom. You have to stay optimistic. Things are going to get better. And she was 100% right on.
It was a drastic change for Earth Cafe, but they made a smooth transition and are proud to say that no one on their staff has contracted the virus.
We actually have thermometers to take temperatures. So we're watching and we're making sure no one comes to work sick. We're constantly sourcing and buying because it's very important. It's difficult to keep stock of all of that.
Earth Cafe has done everything they can to be able to stay open and serve the city of Orange. This means even taking extra precautions with every employee that comes to work.
I feel really confident that we can continue serving people and not endanger our guests or staff.
But the looming truth of the matter is that these restaurants and small businesses will not be able to survive like this forever.
It's a little bit scary. Insurance does not cover this. So, that makes for a lot of uncertainty. It does seem like there are programs that will apply to us and will assist us in moving forward.
Shalom said that the Earth Cafe should be able to stay open for delivery and takeout for another month or two with the measures they are taking now. But like all other businesses in similar situations, any longer than that may be a struggle.
It's really remarkable to see how the Earth Cafe management and team, we've all come together to be able to survive with this huge drop in sales, to keep moving forward. Most of all, my wife and I, but we all have tightened our belts and we're sharing hours, we're rotating, we've reduced hours, but we're trying to share them fairly.
Shalom is confident that things will get better for all of us, but in the meantime, he and Sheila are grateful for the support from the Orange community.
We love your support. We're doing great, fresh, healthy foods. Earth Cafe coffee and tea is the best. Thank you for this attention and love. Thank you.
Reporting from Orange County, this is Kim Becker.
Thank you, Kim. During this time where so many of us are stuck at home, it's important to remember that not everyone has that privilege. Our Nina Haddon took a look at the most vulnerable in our community, the homeless, and what life looks like for them these days. Nina?
A statewide stay-at-home order was issued March 19th in California to combat COVID-19. But not everyone has a home to quarantine. Thousands of individuals rely on housing assistance programs to get back on their feet and live independently. Jean Wegner runs SPIN, an organization dedicated to creating new lives for families. Since quarantine, her organization struggles managing cases virtually.
Meeting with a client is more than just talking with them. It's also looking at their body language, listening to their tone of voice. It's picking up a signal that, oh, there's something else going on here that I don't know about.
Other organizations grapple with losing volunteer support. Natalie Julian of Thomas House, which serves families by providing numerous programs and classes to parents struggling with housing, says they've essentially closed their campus.
We had to cancel any on-site activities where volunteers or service groups would have been coming on-site. So, no more volunteer individuals, no more classes.
Others have to adjust their programs. Carrie Buck of His House ran a volunteer-led food distribution program that was suspended for quarantine, but they still find ways to support the community.
We have a blessing box that's out front, and we stock that multiple times a day if needed, but every day, and people can stop by and pick up non-perishable items from there as needed.
Although all of these organizations have different dilemmas, they fight for the same cause. On April 22nd, the Help Them Home campaign to end homelessness in Orange County has its annual Giving Day. For Chapman News, this is Nina Hatton.
Thanks, Nina. Now, big news out of California this week as Governor Newsom announced $125 million in relief for undocumented Californians. Newsom also discussing California's plan for reopening the state. Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti saying he can't imagine crowds gathering at big events until 2021. With more news from the Golden State, we have our Carissa Davis. Carissa?
Some good news from California as it becomes the first state in the nation to offer cash assistance to the more than 2 million undocumented immigrants living in the state. Governor Newsom even extending that aid further to farmers and food workers, mandating an extra 2 weeks of sick paid leave to these essential workers. And in its continued fight to flatten the curve, California ranks 30th in coronavirus deaths per capita. What's made the state so successful in bending the curve despite the odds? Early social distancing, a work-from-home culture, and a history of statewide disasters. But California isn't golden just yet. Hospitalizations due to COVID-19 rose statewide. But shifting gears, by now the coronavirus has impacted California in so many different ways. We've seen a rise in cleaner air, donations, but we have also seen a spread of fear, hate, racism. Mang Vang from Stockton, California says the rise of racism is so bad she carries pepper spray with her everywhere she goes.
To be honest with you, I don't feel safe. Sometimes I don't know what I fear more, the virus or getting attacked by people because I'm Asian.
Since February, Mang has had 3 instances where she was discriminated against. She's had rude glares, people avoiding her. She was even refused service at a grocery store. And she isn't the only one. More than 1,000 reports of coronavirus discrimination from Asian Americans have been filed across the nation, 30% occurring in California. In response to this, gun store owners across counties have seen a sharp rise in the number of Asian Americans purchasing guns. One gun store owner in the San Gabriel Valley claims that he has seen around 10 times more Asian customers walk through his door in recent weeks.
I never wanted to have anything to do with a gun because that contradicts with what I want to do for the rest of my life, which is helping save lives. But with the whole situation right now and a lot of people getting attacked, it really has puzzled me and made me confused on where I stand right now.
Mang is Mung. She was born in a refugee camp in Thailand and came to the United States when she was a toddler. She hopes to be a nurse someday. Growing up in America, the values of kindness, fairness, and helping others shaped her to who she is today. And even though not every American shares the same values as her, she believes community will help us through this.
I believe that in times like this, unity is what will help keep us sane and keep us together instead of fighting against each other or one another.
Reporting from Anaheim Hills, I'm Carissa Davis for Chapman News.
Thanks, Carissa. In Washington, the race for president continues, with Joe Biden landing major endorsements this week. With more, we have our Jackie Gold with our national political report. Jackie?
Joe Biden is getting big endorsements this week from his former boss, President Barack Obama, his former rival, Bernie Sanders, and from Elizabeth Warren, who said she'd like to be his running mate.
So today I am asking all Americans, I'm asking every Democrat, I'm asking every independent, I'm asking a lot of Republicans to come together in this campaign to support your candidacy, which I endorse.
For the president, not such good news. Trump's approval rating keeps dropping to 43% in a new poll. The poll also shows 56% of Americans disapproving of the president's response to the coronavirus outbreak. President Trump shifted blame for the outbreak off himself and onto the World Health Organization as he halted funding and called for an investigation into the mismanagement of the WHO.
Today, I'm instructing my administration to halt funding of the World Health Organization while a review is conducted to assess the World Health Organization's role in severely mismanaging and covering up the spread of the coronavirus.
The U.S. is the World Health Organization's largest contributor, making up nearly 15% of the budget. The organization has been critical in developing programs to eradicate polio, create vaccines, and research cancer. The Director General of the WHO made a statement on Wednesday in response.
We regret the decision of the President of the United States to order a hold in funding to the World Health Organization. With support from the people and government of the United States, WHO works to improve the health of many of the world's poorest and most vulnerable people.
Stimulus checks went out this week for some struggling Americans, but about 70 million are still awaiting paper checks to arrive. The delay is caused by Trump's request to have his name on the checks, making it the first time a president's name is on an IRS disbursement. He addressed the delay during a press briefing yesterday.
Well, I don't know too much about it, but I understand my name is there. I don't know where they're going, how they're going. I do understand it's not delaying anything, and I'm satisfied with that. I don't imagine it's a big deal. I'm sure people will be very happy to get a big, fat, beautiful check, and my name is on it.
But for some struggling Americans, it is a big deal. With another 5.5 million Americans filing for unemployment this week, the checks are desperately needed. The president also butted heads this week with journalists and governors. During a press briefing, Trump claimed that the president has total authority.
When somebody's the president of the United States, the authority is total. And that's the way it's got to be. Total. Your authority is total. It's total. It's total. And the governors know that.
But it turns out the governors do not know that. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo addressed the president's remarks on Tuesday.
The federal government does not have absolute power. It says the exact opposite that the president said. It says that would be a king. We would have had King George Washington, and we didn't have King George Washington, and we don't have King Trump. We have President Trump.
Just yesterday, though, the president reversed his rhetoric, stating that it is up to the governors to reopen their respective states.
Governors will be empowered to tailor an approach that meets the diverse circumstances of their own states.
I'm Jackie Gold reporting from Albany, New York with your national political update. With more on state-level politics is Michael Karabit.
New York remains the coronavirus capital of the world, with more than 222,000 confirmed cases in the state, over half of them in New York City alone. The death toll in New York has topped 14,000. Governor Cuomo continues to ramp up the measures to contain the virus, on Wednesday pledging to sign an executive order requiring all New Yorkers to wear masks that cover the nose and mouth.
If you're going to be in public, and you cannot maintain social distancing, then have a mask. And put the mask on when you are not in socially distanced places. You're walking down the street alone, great.
And as the stimulus checks promised by the federal government start to trickle into the hands of Americans, California is taking economic recovery one step further. Governor Gavin Newsom announcing Wednesday a partnership between the state and charities across the state to provide $125 million in disaster relief to undocumented workers.
$125 million to provide individual assistance of $500 and household assistance up to $1,000 for those individuals that are quite literally putting themselves on the line and helping support this economy and those most in need at this moment.
But the virus is not just on the coasts. As the virus takes hold throughout the country, governors and mayors in Middle America are taking the steps necessary to meet their citizens' needs. Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois announced in a briefing that he is working with governors of other states on a plan to reopen their economies once the risks associated with COVID-19 decrease. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot is optimistic that the city will soon recover, as data brought by Chicago health officials suggests the transmission of COVID-19 is slowing down within the city limits.
Chicago is beginning to flatten the curve on COVID-19 cases. These gains represent some of the most hopeful signs yet that we are on the right path and our work is paying off.
Sadly, not every state is as optimistic, as over 500 employees at a Smithfield Foods processing plant in South Dakota have contracted coronavirus, making up around half the total cases currently in the state. As a result, Governor Kristi Noem has issued a temporary closure of the factory, with Smithfield CEO Ken Sullivan warning of a possible meat shortage in the future. And in Michigan, as Governor Gretchen Whitmer announced a stay-at-home order, residents began flooding the state capitol in Lansing in protest, saying the governor was infringing on the people's rights.
Why are you restricted from certain things and not restricted for others, but they call it non-essential? I can go a week without doing a shot of Jim Beam.
Protesters marched on the streets in blatant disregard of social distancing and other protective measures, carrying signs bearing Trump-Pence 2020, chanting to recall the Democratic governor, and the familiar phrase, lock her up. President Trump won Michigan by only 10,000 votes in 2016 and is largely attributed for his election. 538 currently polls Biden ahead of Trump by 9 points in Michigan. Whether the lockdown has any effect on the political makeup of the state remains to be seen. While the COVID-19 crisis continues to be contained primarily at the state level, all eyes are shifting back to the Trump administration's response and the impending election. As more states cast their primary ballots, please look into alternative forms of voting. From Long Beach, California, I'm Michael Karabit.
Thanks, Michael. Unemployment claims continue to rise at an alarming rate this week. 11 years worth of job gains erased in 4 weeks. And a new plan from the White House advising low-risk areas to renew economic activity after May 1st. Jared Brosnan has the latest economic update. Jared?
The U.S. economy continues to sway back and forth each day this week as workers across the country are starting to see stimulus checks in their bank accounts. 5 million Americans have filed for unemployment this week, bringing the total to almost 22 million in the past month, the worst number since the peak of the Great Depression. The IRS launching a new tool Wednesday for people to see if they are eligible to receive any payments from the government. Unfortunately, the Get My Payment tool has not been working for many who accessed the tool on Wednesday. As fewer and fewer people are on the road, the demand for gas hits an all-time low. 75% of gas stations in the country now selling for less than $2 a gallon. But apparently will not be enough to convince those staying at home. The National Association of Convenience Stores is saying that Americans will not be driving right now for cheap prices. This week in Europe, Amazon being ordered to limit its delivery services to essential good only. A court in France ruled that the company must comply within 24 hours or face a €1 million penalty. Elsewhere around the globe, China's economy has fallen almost 7% in the first 3 months of 2020. This is the first time on record China has taken such a financial hit, showing the effects of the virus in its most hard-hit countries. As of this week, small business loans have reached the $349 billion allocated in the bill, with over 1 million different accounts seeking help. The average loan size is around $240,000. This as many small businesses are struggling just to keep employee benefits active during this time while their salaries are on hold. With your economy update from Valencia, California, I'm Jared Brosnan.
Thanks, Jared. With the US announcing plans to start reopening soon, countries in Europe have already started to transition to a new normal. Our reporter Jada Sandhu took a closer look at what's happening around the globe. Jada?
The UK says the curve is flattening as they are starting to see a downward trend of coronavirus cases, and a lot of European countries are looking to ease out of lockdown. But UK Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab says the UK is extending its lockdown for another 3 weeks. And over Easter weekend, Italian police issued 42,000 fines to people who broke the containment policies. Despite this, on Tuesday, they lifted some lockdown measures, including reopening bookstores and clothing stores for children. Denmark is lifting some restrictions, and on Wednesday, they started phase 1 of reopening the country, with sending young children back to school. Germany also starting to reopen some non-essential stores and plans to send kids back to school starting May 4th. Finland lifted the restrictions on movement on Wednesday, and the Czech government is allowing university students to return to class next week. But not everyone is seeing improvements like Europe. Pakistan extended its partial lockdown through the end of April, and India has extended its lockdown through May 3rd. Mexico extended stay-at-home orders until May 30th. And some are continuing to crack down even more. Canada has implemented a new policy. Anyone entering the country without a clear quarantine plan will be forced to quarantine in a hotel for 2 weeks. Now, France is giving its healthcare workers a bonus. While general healthcare workers will receive an additional $500, the workers who are directly dealing with coronavirus patients will receive $1,600. And this week, South Korea held its parliamentary elections. Despite extra precautions for voters, including temperature checks at the door and social distancing rules, voter turnout was at 56% by 3 p.m., up by 10% from the last parliamentary elections. Some good news for one patient and her family out of the UK. 106-year-old Connie Titchen has been released from the hospital 3 weeks after being diagnosed with COVID-19. Nurses say she was the oldest patient to beat the virus and might be the oldest to do so in the United Kingdom. Connie said she is most excited to be reunited with her family. For Chapman News from Orange, California, I'm Jada Sandhu.
Thanks, Jada. States like California have proven that social distancing is effective at slowing the spread of the virus. And studies have shown that not just the elderly are at risk from COVID-19, yet some young Americans continue to ignore social distancing and stay-at-home orders, putting themselves and those they love at risk. But what can you do if you notice that your friends are ignoring social distancing rules? Our Ella Martine spoke with one Chapman student who had to have this difficult decision.
Thanks, Rudy. I think we can all agree that quarantine isn't fun for anyone. But so far, people are doing a great job at staying home and isolating themselves for the greater good of society. But what about those friends that you have that just can't seem to play by the rules? The fear of missing out shouldn't be something we have to add to our list of concerns during this pandemic. Those that aren't following the stay-at-home orders in place pose a threat to not just themselves but to their communities as well. So what do you say to them? On April 5th, some Chapman students gathered together to celebrate what they were missing during Coachella weekend. Summer Wilson, a Chapman senior, shared what she thought about their disregard for the current stay-at-home policy via Instagram. I spoke with her about the difficult decision to not speak directly to those she knew and what she wishes she had said to them.
I did not reach out in this circumstance. I did post about it in like a subtweet kind of way, which got a lot of really great feedback because I think other people were thinking and feeling the same way about this specific event. But if I were to have reached out, I think I would have been like, hey guys, this is really not cool. It's actually quite selfish, and I'm disappointed that you guys would think that this is okay. I love you guys regardless, but I think that you guys shouldn't be gathering in such big groups with people that you're not living with, because it's selfish and you could potentially get it yourself. If you only care about yourself, you could contract it yourself. You're not invincible. And more importantly, you could put other people at risk.
This difficult decision about what or what not to say to those friends who are going out can be a heavy weight. In my personal experience, telling friends to stop going out and stay isolated has led to some tension. Summer gave me some advice on how to explain to people the importance of social distance.
I think I would come about it in a way that's not, I mean, you have to be firm in things like this because it is a matter of right and wrong and there's really no gray area. But at the same time, if they're your friends, you come at them with love and with, understanding and hoping that they see that you're coming from a place of love because you care about them and you also care about other people.
Although her messages weren't directly to the partygoers, it was clear that her message got through via her Instagram story. She stands by what she said, as it is an important message for everyone.
It's definitely an awkward situation. Definitely. I won't negate that. It's awkward to confront your friends sometimes. You can feel kind of guilty for telling them that it's wrong. I feel a lot of times that's the case. When people know that they're standing up for the right thing, they oftentimes feel guilty for speaking up because they don't want to disturb the peace or make their friends uncomfortable. And I've had to learn that the hard way, that if you make your friends uncomfortable and they don't want to be friends with you anymore because you're vocal and you speak up about things that matter and things that are important to you, then those aren't the kind of friends you want in the first place.
Don't be afraid to speak your mind. Quarantine is not what we had hoped for in 2020, but the sooner everyone stays indoors, the sooner we get out. For Chapman News from my home in Portland, Oregon, I'm Ella Martine.
Thanks, Ella. Social distancing might be keeping us home, but the entertainment industry continues to keep us from being bored. We have our birthday girl, Jules Rector, with all the latest on quarantainment this week. Jules?
So today is special because it's my 21st birthday, and since I can't spend it partying like I had originally planned, I'm spending it today with all of you. Many are speculating if we'll be able to host large gatherings or events until next year. But on the upside, this new reality is giving us ways to make large events more accessible. I mean, I've never been able to afford events like Coachella or Burning Man, but now that they're transitioning online, I might be able to join in on the fun. And online releases seem to be working quite well for DreamWorks as their newly released film Trolls World Tour is breaking records with the biggest digital debut of all time. Tiny Diamond is my I don't know why, but I really want to see it. So does someone want to Venmo me $20 so I can rent it, please, for my birthday? Oh well, I guess I'll just watch the free movies that Lionsgate is offering starting tonight and for the next 4 Fridays on the Fandango Movie Clips YouTube page. Jamie Lee Curtis will host tonight's movie, which is Hunger Games, followed by La La Land, Dirty Dancing, and John Wick.
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
Just like Swayze said, I think some of us certainly feel like baby as we're forced to live in our childhood homes. And how have Chapman students been entertaining themselves while stuck at home with their parents? Well, a group of Chapman students missed college life so much that they created the entirety of Chapman's campus on Minecraft, including Dodge College and DMAC. And if you know anything about the game, you know that their project probably took weeks to complete. And for those of us who are less tech savvy, some students continue to stay creative by going viral on TikTok and even making songs inspired by how the coronavirus has affected their lives. Actually, Chapman News' own Ella Martine created a clever song to the tune of Hey There Delilah, which is now available on Spotify.
Hey, it's Delilah, I've left a couple messages. Did you see on the news they're saying they don't think we'll make it out alive?
Now that is talent. Keep killing it, girl. Follow us at Chapman News to take a look at some of this creative quarantainment content. Well, I gotta go celebrate my birthday with a living room dance party. I'll catch you next week.
Thanks, Jules, and a very happy birthday to you. Now, our weekly feature, Making a Difference. We like to end our show every week with a spotlight on a hero. This week, our Flo Singer has the stories of 2 heroes who are showing that anyone can make a difference, whether it's big or small.
Yet another week of amazing individuals and their selfless acts to help others in these times of adversity. This week's hero shows us that what may seem like a simple thing to one can mean the world to another. Going out isn't an option for many seniors. Those who leave usually only go to get essential supplies. Like so many seniors in America, Lane McKeel is just getting by with monthly disability checks. After receiving his monthly check, McKeel headed over to the Fresh and Easy Market in his hometown, Georgetown, Tennessee. As the cashier rang up a total of his groceries, his $140 disability check ran him short of $33. But when a 17-year-old employee, Elizabeth Taylor, realized what was going on, she told him not to worry about it and covered the rest of his total. Grateful for her selfless act,
McKeel is calling Taylor an angel and the light of day. In these times, we need to look out for one another, even if that's helping a stranger you happen to run into. Taylor shows us that no matter how old you are, you can help someone by even the simplest of acts. And another amazing story about a British World War II veteran who has raised nearly $20 million for hospital workers in the UK since the start of the campaign a little over a week ago. 99-year-old Tom Moore is raising money for the National Health Society to thank them for their help during his hip replacement surgery and skin cancer treatments. Moore is doing 25-meter laps around his garden, hoping to do 100 laps by his 100th birthday on April 30th, while raising money in the process. The fundraising page has been flooding with donations from nearly 8,000 people ever since headlines broke about his efforts. The initial target was roughly around $1,200 when Moore started on April 6th, and now has reached nearly over $20 million.
I'm proud for the fact that we're working and doing such a good job for the National Health Service, for all those nurses and doctors. It's unbelievable the service that they're giving.
Although Moore reached his target amount, he is now looking forward to completing another 100 laps to raise more money. Reporting from my home in Las Vegas, Nevada, I'm Flo Singer.
Thanks, Flo. It's so important to remind ourselves that no good deed is ever too small, and there's no age limit to being a hero. That's it for our report for today. Make sure to practice social distancing, wash your hands regularly, and most importantly, stay home and keep safe. Remember, we'll get through this together. We'll be back next week with another update on this ongoing crisis on Chapman News, the podcast. Until then, be sure to check out our social media page at Chapman News on Instagram and Facebook. I'm Rudy Juarez Pinedo from Whittier, California for Chapman News. Stay safe and healthy.